Chapter 529, Irrational. Berman's raised hands released a sprinkling of fluorescent powder. His body began to fade, growing more transparent, as if he had transformed into a being from the spirit world, difficult for ordinary people to perceive. In the blink of an eye, the demon warlock vanished. Lumion made no move to intervene or evade potential attacks. Calmly, he retrieved the flog boxing gloves adorned with iron-black spikes from his traveler's bag and wore them. Completing this preparation, he suddenly knelt on one knee, pressing his hands to the ground. Crimson flames erupted in all directions from Lumion's body, accompanied by a series of explosions. Amidst the rumbling, flames surged, dominating the grayish-black wilderness. Berman's black-robed figure materialized in midair. He slowly floated towards Lumion, narrowing the distance between them. Lumion's figure abruptly vanished, reappearing behind Berman. Spirit World Traversal. Without hesitation, Lumion, holding a crimson fireball in his left hand, harumphed. Two beams of white light shot out from his nose, targeting Berman. Floating in midair, Berman didn't lose consciousness as before. His body swayed, forcefully turning around to observe Lumion descending into the sea of flames on the ground. An illusory vertical eye, dark purple and nearly black, materialized between Berman's brows, reflecting Lumion's figure amid pale white patterns. Almost simultaneously, a lanky black shadow emerged from within Berman's body. Nearby, arms made of bones or decayed flesh and pus extended from the void, encircling Berman's transparent and thin form. He hadn't used witchcraft to quietly approach Lumion and strike. Instead, he had clandestinely swapped his spirit with the undead under his command, setting a trap to entice the enemy into deploying that peculiar spell to attack his body. In such a scenario, the absence of one's spirit body meant immunity to abilities targeting the soul body. Berman could then seize the opportunity to use the eye of the spirit to intimidate the enemy and create an opening for the manipulated undead. This time, he refrained from delving deeper into the secret of the other party's spirit body. His goal was to uncover its vulnerabilities, strike with a lethal blow, and absorb the corresponding mystical knowledge. Having suffered greatly from the spell of Harumph the previous night, he had used this ability as a breakthrough from the beginning. In an instant, Berman's spirit completed the exchange with the lanky shadow and returned to his body. Simultaneously, Lumion experienced once again the sensation of his spirit being intimidated and suppressed, as if frozen. Terrifying arms covered in festering warts or with eyes extended from the void, reaching out for his body. At that moment, the crimson fireball in Lumion's left hand erupted. Boom! The explosion's force was mostly mitigated by the flog boxing gloves, but since they weren't fully covered, the exposed part of Lumion's left palm was turned into a bloody mess. An intense and familiar pain shot through his brain and spirit body, bringing him back to awareness. Seizing this moment of clarity, Lumion activated the black mark on his right shoulder again, vanishing above the sea of flames and disappearing from the strange undead arms extending from the void. Likewise, he remained vigilant against Berman's Eye of Illusory. The crimson, nearly white fireball in his left hand was structurally unstable. He had to divert his attention to maintain it, and he couldn't sustain it when affected by the Eye of Illusory, leading to its natural disintegration and a self-inflicted awakening. If this failed to disrupt the Eye of Illusory's intimidation, the sea of flames below served as Lumion's second preparation. The residual aura of the Blood Emperor in his right hand was his last resort. Upon vanishing, Lumion reappeared behind Berman once more. Prepared, Berman raised his hands and scattered a tree-like powder. Crackling sounds followed as silver-white lightning struck Lumion's head, as though a storm ruler had unleashed divine retribution from the sky. For most Beyonders, this would be enough to paralyze and make them tremble incessantly. Yet, Lumion showed no such signs. Instead, he appeared like a reflection in the water, shattered by the lightning. The real Lumion was curled up at the bottom of the figure. Berman had struck the phantom created using the Nice face. The Nice face was essentially an illusion, but it couldn't be cast on others or items. Lumion had to rely on himself, pretending to be a root system with branches and flowers above, forming a derived illusion. There was no fundamental difference between this, and using the niece face to make himself taller and bulkier. Amidst the crackling lightning, two crimson fireballs materialized beneath Lumien's feet and behind him. Rumble! The fireball exploded, propelling Lumien towards the levitating Berman. Berman, being close proximity, couldn't dodge the swift Lumien in time. He could only slightly turn his body as a bone spear sprouted from his shoulder, its tip unusually sharp. A grin spread across Lumien's face. He didn't evade, allowing the bone spear to pierce his right chest. With a resounding thud, he swung his left fist, delivering a powerful blow to the side of Berman's face. The demon warlock's head twisted, revealing deep blood-stained, pus-filled holes on his face. His eyes burned with rage, as if he were witnessing the murder of his wife. The black mark on Lumien's right shoulder emitted a dim light once more. His figure vanished beside Berman, dissolving into the encircling lanky black shadows and other undead creatures, leaving behind the bone spear stained with his blood. This time, Lumien reappeared dozens of meters away, at the edge of the sea of flames. The wound on his right chest was grotesque, blood dripping from it. In his hand appeared a dark red bone flute with a hole in it. Symphony of Hatred. Lumien brought the bone flute to his lips. As he retreated, he played a mournful and haunting melody. Once again invoking the eye of illusory, Berman, who was on the verge of catching up, was frozen in astonishment. Even the undead ceased their movements. Suddenly, blood and pus seeped from Berman's eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, as if a muffled and invisible explosion had occurred within him. His anger, paranoia, and thirst for revenge were fueled by the symphony of hatred. This inflicted a severe blow on him. Lumien refrained from playing the symphony of hatred from the outset because Berman differed from other Beyonders. Others needed to identify the problem, but with Berman, there were too many uncertainties. His mental state was extremely unstable, burdened by severe psychological issues. His overwhelming desire to revive his wife and seek revenge on the Islander swindler was palpable. His body had undergone modifications from the death domain, and Lumien had inflicted significant injuries on him the previous night. There were substantial hidden dangers. Faced with such an adversary, Lumien himself was uncertain about the outcome if he were to unleash the symphony of hatred through the shepherd's flute. It might be manageable if it only triggered desires and emotions, but if Berman's mental state lost even the most basic restraints, the demon warlock could potentially lose control on the spot, transforming into a monstrous entity with mixed abilities. Such a monster would likely be even more challenging to deal with than Berman. Hence, after the spell of Harumph failed, Lumien promptly shifted to using flog boxing gloves to kindle Berman's corresponding desires and emotions. This strategic approach increased the likelihood that when Lumien eventually used the symphony of hatred, it would exploit the target's emotions and desires, inflicting severe harm. Observing Berman descend into the sea of flames amid the eruption of emotions and desires, Lumien executed another spirit world traversal, appearing in front of him in an instant. Bangs, bangs, bang. He extended his arms, unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks on Berman's body. On the surface of his flog fists, a crimson fireball, almost white, compressed layer by layer. Bam, 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 Flog tore at Berman's flesh like a two-headed python. Rumble. Crimson fireballs erupted around Lumien with no concern for waste. They formed a barrier, preventing the lanky figure, strange arms, and other undead from interfering. One punch, two punches, three punches. Lumien's eyes were fixed on the mangled Berman. At that moment, he reflected on the village destroyed by Berman and the innocent lives lost because of him. How many were beloved wives, waiting husbands, dependent parents, and cherished children? Cordu had been annihilated due to the ambitions of the evil gods. What about the innocent? Lumien's eyes gradually turned crimson as he clenched his fists. This time, he didn't empathize with Berman. Instead, he placed himself in the village he had destroyed and the lives he had taken. Wasn't Cordu like this back then? The ambitions of these evil gods are to blame. In just a few seconds, Berman snapped out of his pain and emitted an evil, cold, and incomprehensible voice. The sound seemed to peel away Lumien's flesh, exposing his spirit body to the perilous sunlight and the grayish-black gravel. Lumien's movements slowed, and the grotesque arms finally reached in, dragging Berman away from the area. Few Lumien exhaled and recovered. He didn't pursue. Instead, he gazed silently at the void ahead, raised his right hand, and snapped his fingers. Rumble. Amidst the sudden eruption of intense flames, Berman's body materialized, shattering from an explosion. Fire infusion. Hunter's fire infusion. In truth, Lumien hadn't acted rationally. His optimal strategy would have been to seize the moment when Berman's emotions and desires were ignited and strike at his vital points with the symphony of hatred, delivering a decisive blow. However, he yearned to repeatedly pummel the hidden version of himself that terrified him. With a thud, Berman's head clattered to the ground. In his daze, he caught sight of a slender figure with black hair, blue eyes, and a delicate face. It was his wife, Helen. "Why, you're back?" Berman couldn't help but smile and extend his arm. He no longer had an arm. Gradually, he lost consciousness. Darkness enveloped his vision as if sunlight lurked deep within. Demon Warlock Berman dead.